Welcome to the Dalles Chamber of Community Affairs. Our guest today is a very busy but important man, Representative Jeff Helfrich, and he is doing his best to be our voice in Salem during this long session. So before we have him come on and give us some latest updates, we're going to go around the room and we're going to start with Brian.
Sorry, taking me a while to get used to this. Been gone for 2 months here and trying to remember how to make all this work. So Brian Tuck, retired, living the dream of a retiree.
And an amazing grandpa too. Awesome. Thank you. Dan Spots.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Dan Spots, also retired. Thank you.
We'll see how long that lasts, Dan.
Yeah. Corliss.
Good morning, Corliss Marsh, Habitat for Humanity, the library, the senior center, and College Foundation.
Yes, and you have one more.
What's that?
The one with Norcor.
Oh yes, and the Norcor Coalition. Yes.
You do an amazing work, Corliss. Can't leave anything out. So, Scott.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay, Community Liaison for Circles of Care, and I'll keep it short so we can get to Jeff.
Thank you. Bill Lennox.
Morning. I'm with North Central Public Health, Six Rivers Dispute Resolution Center on the board and also retired.
Awesome. Phil Brady.
Good morning. Good morning, Representative Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner.
Thank you for being here. Jennifer. Oh, are you talking, Will?
No, sorry.
Okay. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Will White, formerly on the board of the Hood River Shelter, and now retired.
Will, is that the same Will White living out of Rowena or Mosier, as I recall?
That's right, Dan. I remember meeting
good
you when you were with the community college.
Good to see you on this call, sir. Let's catch up. Okay.
Why? You're muted.
Lisa, you're muted.
Jennifer Griffith.
Good morning. My name's Jennifer Griffith. I'm the CEO of One Community Health.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for setting this up for all of us.
Yes. All right. Let's go to Cecilia Goodnight. And we'll come back to you in just a second. Nicholas, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Nicholas Ruiz Anderson, wishing desperately to be retired, but happy to take notes today.
Thank you for being here. And we welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. With that, here's how it works for those who are new. If you have a question, Jeff is one of these guys that he will answer it during his talk. That way we stay on topic for what he's said and shared. Try to get my attention. I appreciate because sometimes all eyes on here, sometimes, but also know that I try to wait till Jeff takes a breath before I get in there. So I will be watching for hands raised. If you have a question and want to put it on the chat, I will watch for that and make sure it gets asked. And then if either of those functions are easy for you because either you're on the phone or something like that, just take yourself off mute and just be bold and interrupt. We love questions, and I know Jeff does too. He wants to hear from you and wants to be able to answer and address what's a concern of yours. So with that, Jeff, I'm turning it over to you. And thank you again for being here and taking some time out.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity. I think first things first, because I heard Rowena mention that was one of the first things I was going to talk about. We understand that there's a challenging situation in our community, in the district. And that was a hard thing to watch. The fire, it spread quickly. Had a lot of conversations at the governor's office as soon as that kicked off, and I knew the wind was kicking up, and got on the phone with the fire marshal, and the governor had quickly declared the conflagration. I'm going to mess that up. It's early in the morning. Anyway, so the resources could be brought in from around the state, and they were able to bring in numerous strike teams, as they call them, within the fire department. It's my understanding a strike team is about 5 apparatuses per strike team, and they brought in several of those. I think at total high point they had 150 personnel firefighters on scene, whether they were wildland firefighters and or structure firefighters with the regular structural units that were there. I was talking to Lane McGill within, it happened I think 4 o'clock in the afternoon or somewhere around there, that late afternoon. And then next morning I got a hold of Lane to see if he needed anything more from us, because once that conflagration was committed and signed into order, that really got resources there. And for everybody that was part of that did that job, whether they're from our area, the district, to help them fight that fire, everybody else from outside of that, thank you so much for getting there. I think without that quick response, there would have been a lot more structures lost, and maybe even some loss of life. I know, talking to Lane, there's 50, I think he said 52 structures were lost. He didn't break it down further between, barns and outbuildings and houses. I do know Shauna's, Jean Lindley, a friend of Shauna's dad that was kind of a grandmother for her, actually lost her home in the fire. And so it hits close to us, and they were able to barely escape with anything other than a few pictures and some clothing. And that was it to get her out of there. So with that said, now the cleanup starts. I talked with the sheriff, and Wasco County is not prepared to do mitigation and DEQ type of cleanup. That's just not part of their wheelhouse. And so Lane was concerned with that. DEQ may not help in there. And so when he got a hold of me yesterday morning, immediately made phone call, or actually 2 nights ago, I guess it was, when I was in committee, got out of committee and made some phone calls to the governor's office, and then got with the state fire marshal's office to make sure that DEQ and other resources were available to help with the cleanup. And what we mean by the cleanup is there's a lot of older homes there that may have asbestos and other hazardous materials. Then if that stuff starts leaching into the ground and or into the river itself, that causes a lot of problems just all the way around. And so make sure the state fire marshal's office was dialed back in with the sheriff, and she really helped a lot with that. And I'm just really happy that the state fire marshal's office is actually a standalone agency now. We took it out of OSP's portfolio and made them a standalone, created a little more jobs in the sense of people staffing it, but to have their own standalone facility was really great, because division, because it was, that fire quickly escalated. And I think this is going to help us fight fires better. With that, just make sure if anybody helped somebody crash on a couch or had a place for them to stay, thank you for helping that out. And if we don't know exactly who's lost homes and where they're at, but we're trying to make sure emergency responses are getting there as needed. When the district was on fire, I was still in Salem, so there's not much I could do here. Just making sure I make phone calls and get the resources there. So with that, do we have any questions about that?
Thank you, Representative. I think it was 56 structures and then over 100 outbuildings. I appreciate the work about cleanup. That will be the next phase. In the county, we've often had problems, even just in regular, where a house is left abandoned and it becomes an eyesore and health hazard. So bringing resources in, not only to identify, but to clean up on a broad scale is going to be important. That's Rowena is part of the scenic highway. And so we want it to be safe and good. We've taken an additional step now that in the human sector of it, we've had two MARC meetings, multi-agency resource centers down at the county office, where opened up about 3 rooms, and everything from PUD to Serve Pro to Salvation Army to our assessor's office were there so that residents could come in and get all of those processes started in one step. I visited there and it's going well.
It's fire season started early for us, unfortunately, and the winds. I know when I left for Salem that weekend, everything's kind of blurring together anymore. It's just, I think I have a day off here or there when I go home and see the family. That I'm back down here, but I know the winds were really whipping up and it was hot, and it was just a recipe for disaster. And I did ask the state fire marshal very bluntly about cause of fire, where that's at. So they do have the arson investigators looking at it. I have nothing to report, nor would I want to even speculate what the cause of that was. They did say there was at least there was more than 2 start points. So they're looking into that. And so once that investigation's completed and they can actually talk about something, it'll be interesting to see what exactly happened and where that was going on. So.
Jeff, can I ask a silly favor?
Sure.
Can you turn your camera so that there you go. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I know it's a little thing, but it makes us easier to see you while you're talking. So,
Oh, okay. There we go.
okay.
I have some notes on my phone too, because I'm just sitting on my phone. So I'm trying to look at my notes and figure that out. So I got to zoom in, zoom out on stuff because my eyesight's, I don't have my glasses today.
Oh, we totally understand about that, but thank you. So I don't see any more questions on the fire. I'll just say that there's several different agencies trying to just keep track so that we can get the information further. The chamber has a page that we set up very quickly on our website, and we're just trying to grab everything and anything for info so that if people come to ours, they can have one more spot to see it. So we do have the page in the chat below. We will be updating it again this morning with some more info that we got last night. So if you see something and it's not there, please let me know. I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I just want to make sure that we have one other avenue that if people happen to come to ours, they're going to get that info. And so we're just trying to do everything we can to educate and inform as we try to navigate this through this. So, but Jeff, thank you for your efforts there and on our behalf. Appreciate that. But I'll let you continue now with the other stuff that's going on in Salem.
Well, end of session. That is quickly approaching. I think I said earlier, we have 10 days left. The Speaker and the Senate President, I think at the beginning of June, declared imminent sine die, which means, or sine die is imminent, which means that all the rules are kind of thrown out the window. And what I mean by that is there's usually posting times, 24, 48 hours before meetings and amendments and bills being presented in committees. Now it's down to an hour. And so we saw that in transportation. It's just a flurry of amendments for this transportation package. And it is tough to keep up. Unfortunately, I have one staff person that helps me, and that's Nick, who's not retired, and he wants to be retired. I'm not going to let him retire anytime soon. So maybe when I decide to retire, he can retire. But until that point in time, I'm going to keep him working hard, and he's doing a great job for me, but also for the district. He does a phenomenal job for that. And so I say this because on the floor, you'll hear people talk about their staff and how grateful they are. And everybody in that chamber does know how lucky they are to have good staff. And it's an acknowledgement there on the chamber floor, which is important. But just so you all know back in the district how important that is, because if I don't have any staff to help me with stuff, I'd be swimming in paper and wouldn't know what to do. So he really does keep this stuff together for me and gets all my things posted that I need and takes my notes and all those great things. So Nick, just I know you're not on the camera, but just shout out to you to let everybody know you're doing a good job for the office and for the district, and so I really appreciate that. So when I say that anything can happen, they could drop an amendment that would be 100 pages to a bill, and we'd have an hour to go over it. And that's what I'm saying. When we have staff that helps us, that is a huge thing. And so you throw it into Adobe work group or whatever it is and do word searches and figure out if there's any keywords you need to figure out. And so however he does that, he comes up with some good stuff, and he's a good speed reader too. So that helps. I mentioned it. We have 10 days by the Constitution to have session completed. And by Constitution, we are mandated to have the budgets passed. And that is our requirement. And so you'll start seeing some games being played, some posturing, some things that go on. And I will call it the theater. They're being leader. I understood the theater and trying to make sure, members get take homes. And when I say take homes, it sounds like, oh, they've committed something and they're getting a personal take home. What I mean by take homes, it's a member works hard for their district and brings back the tax dollars that district's paid into to get a project done. And so when I hear that, and sometimes it gets framed, oh, they bought this person's vote off or whatever it is. It's like, this isn't Chicago politics. This is Oregon politics. And when I hear that take home, it means I'm getting something for the district. And that's what this is about. I'm here to represent you guys and whatever that is, or any other representative out there. And so if you hear that and you kind of sounds ominous, it's like, no, we're working hard to get stuff for our districts. And so I hear those word plays, and that's another thing I call theater. It's like, I just don't have time for that anymore. It's just theater. Let's move on. The budgets are being held on the Speaker's and Senate President's desk right now. I think that's part of the negotiations with leadership and what I call the four corners. Both the majority and minority party within the four corners of the table, figuring out what's going to get out and what's not going to get out. As long as it's on the president or Speaker's desk, it's got a chance to get out. And fortunately, this is where you see a lot of the most controversial bills that will come out in session, is at the very end, because they know we have to stay and get the budgets passed. And so this is kind of how the games and the theaters played. We know that. It is what it is. And so you work through it, and the days are long, but the week is going to go quick. And so we're at Thursday already, which I was trying to figure out what happened on Monday. And that said, it's 3140 was the House bill that I helped sponsor, which was recreational liability. And that the Bagby case that happened back in the mid-2010s changed the way liability is looked at, and that the Supreme Court overruled the law and the trial lawyers came in. And now if you do something, if something happens to you, if you're in a workout facility or you're up skiing on the mountain or you're out mountain biking somewhere and you have equipment or whatever it is, from being in a gym or walking on a city bike path or something, the liability of that is anybody can sue for anything. And so there's inherent risk when you go out and do certain activities, and there is gross negligence. And I'll use the ski industry because that's the easiest one to kind of articulate. If the operator, the ski resort, doesn't maintain their equipment and a chair falls off the chairlift, that is gross negligence. That is predictable, that if you don't maintain your equipment, it is going to cause a problem, and then somebody's going to get injured or die. And then that is where the liability waiver is not part of the conversation. Like, that's gross negligence. The operator is responsible for it. Just like if you go to a gym and you're running on a treadmill, and the manufacturer says on this treadmill that you have a cycle of maintenance that needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen, certain things could go wrong. The belt could fall off, something could break. And if that does happen and that cycle of maintenance is not taken care of, you get injured. That is then gross negligence on the operator, the owner of that. And so the liability waivers that we basically sign really don't mean much. And what that has done through the industry is insurance liability now is so expensive that's getting passed on to us, the consumers. And now one insurance company has determined that because of the Oregon laws, there's no way that they can defend these cases and feel that they're not getting good representation. Then you're going to have all these frivolous lawsuits. That is going to be that's a problem. So they decided to pull out. And so of the people in the district, and I use the ski industry because that's some of the most major employers obviously in Hood River, but just in the part of the district when it comes to winter and our recreational opportunities that we have, we're notified that they will no longer have liability insurance. And I do a podcast, this Back to Basics podcast, and I had Matthew Drake on it. This is a phenomenal job of walking through what that is. And so if you're bored, you want to hear me keep talking or watch it on YouTube, you can find it there. And he does a really good job of talking about it. And so Chair Krupp in Judiciary in the House is a trial lawyer, and he committed to have a work group. And usually when you have a work group, it just kind of slows to molasses and nothing happens. And that's what happened. And so I took that language of that bill and then went over to Senator Meek in the Senate, because he had a placeholder in revenue, because it is a revenue industry, or it is a revenue because it's a $17 billion industry in our state recreation activities. And we have a beautiful state, a lot of open public lands to go do things on. And we cannot afford to lose another business. And $17 billion is nothing to sneeze at annually. And with that, we were able to take one of his bills, put the language in there. I had to lean into a lot of things. On the Senate side, there's 5 people on the committee, and Senator Meek kind of bucked the system. He is a Democrat. I knew him in the House. He just wants to get things done just like I do. And so he and 2 of my Republican colleagues, Senator Starr and Senator McClain, voted yes to send it out of committee. And unfortunately, 2 of the Democrat members on the committee were hesitant, didn't want to. I could tell that they understood why it happened. They needed to do it, but they just couldn't vote because quite frankly, the trial attorneys really control a lot of stuff, and they don't want to see this bill go through. And I just don't understand it. And to that point, we just want to bring what Oregon is the outlier in this. And so we just want to be like all the other Western states that has the same type of rules when you go skiing or use outdoor activities, whether it's whitewater rafting, hunting, fishing, whatever services they are, we're kind of in line with all the Western states. We don't need to be different from the rest of the nation all the time. And so keeping Portland weird is fine, but let's not make sure the rest of Oregon's not that way. So with that said, I'm going to take a moment here if you guys have any questions about that type of thing, because I think that $17 billion industry is something that's really big for our region.
Brian, you started to raise your hand.
Yeah, well, this is kind of related to wildfires. There's been a lot on the news about wildfire funding. Do you have a sense of where that's going to go as far as where that funding might come from?
So we had a couple different avenues. When I was in negotiations in the transportation package, there was a couple of revenue sources that wouldn't have been new revenue sources per se, like taxes. It would have been related to the climate protection program. And unfortunately, those talks broke down. But we do have another alternative for wildfire funding. And the nexus it's a weak nexus, but it's okay. I don't know if you guys have heard of these Zen packs that are little nicotine packets that people use in lieu of chewing. I used to chew tobacco. I don't do it anymore. I gave that up way back when. And so they want to tax that at the consumer level at the counter at 65 cents a can. That'll generate 60 million, I think it is. Nick, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. And then the governor and some other people want to use the interest off the rainy day fund as a stopgap measure. And then that'll give you 120 to 130 million roughly to help wildfire funding, plus the other money that we have dedicated out of the general fund to do that. And so that will help staff in the wildfire funding that way. So that is in negotiation process right now. I don't know where that lands. It is a tax vote, and there's a lot of reluctancy for tax votes, but it is a sin tax, and so that's, I think, one that it's more palatable. It's not like it's a 40-cent gas tax, and where that's a tough one to take there, a 40-cent gas tax. So that's what the wildfire funding looks like as it stands right now. It was the last briefing we had as of yesterday, I believe.
Do they have a sense of how much they really need realizing every year is different, but any sense of kind of what the amount that they really need to kind of provide adequate funding?
I think the number I keep getting kicked around is $350 million. Okay. And there's a lot of projects, I think, or a lot of things that could come out of the general fund that we could pay for general fund dollars that go to pet projects, certain things within agencies that we got to really look at those. And so that'll be kind of my next thing when you roll into the transportation package. But I think there's efficiencies that we can create, but a lot of times they don't. And there's a lot of stuff that happens where you have your ending fund balance. And generally, it used to be that agencies would have 90 days worth of funds available to them to roll over, because they just don't get their whole budget. It just, the budget system doesn't work that way. Like, here's all your money for projects. They get it spent out because of DAS and Department of Administrative Services, how they bill things out. And that's a whole nother government math equation that's just gives you a headache sometimes when you try to figure it out. But now sometimes they'll hold up to 12, if not to 18 months worth of ending fund balances. And so that would free up extra dollars at the other time, because you could use those dollars on the interest that would be accruing through the Treasury. And so there's ways to work through this. It's, when I say it's government complicated math, there's some of it I scratch my head. I've really tried to dive down into the nuances of that, and so I'm getting a lot more educated on that. So there's cost savings, but that, to answer your question itself, it's about $350 million what they're looking at for a budget.
And if, I apologize, if I can ask one more question, with our federal government kind of pulling back from FEMA, which whatever that looks like anymore, they're kind of saying the states are kind of on the hook for their own recoveries. Are you guys talking about that at all? I mean, that's crazy. Like if we have an earthquake here, Oregon's going to get clobbered here.
So Congressman Bentz was in the building the other day. We got to talking a little bit about that. His committees are really the healthcare and that, but we did mention that a little bit. He goes, I think there's, as we talked about theater and theater within politics, I think there's some theater in DC a little bit, and I'd give it 30 days. The federal government's not going to let the citizens sit there and hang out without help. And so I don't believe that's going to happen. I think there's some theater going on trying for accountability. When the federal government does give dollars to states that need it, is it actually going to the people that need it, or is it going to feed administrative services and stuff like that? And so that's kind of why that's my read on some of this stuff.
Thank you. Jennifer, you have a question?
I do. We're talking a little bit about the state budget and, a couple references there to the federal budget. And we know that's still under discussion, but I think it's pretty clear at this point there's going to be some pretty significant cuts to Medicaid. And I'm curious, Jeff, if you guys have talked at all yet about the impact to the state with losing a probably significant amount of Medicaid dollars.
I will be very frank. I don't understand the Medicaid, Medicare budget, because transportation and public safety are my wheelhouse stuff. So I'm not a very good source for that. Nick is on the line, and so this is what Nick gets paid for. So he can kind of talk about what those cuts could look like. So I'll give him some homework for the day to maybe get something pushed out to you guys to maybe answer that question. But I don't want to sit there and tell you I know the answer when I don't.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. And any follow-up and information you can share would be super helpful.
Okay, we'll get that to you.
Okay.
Jeff, I wonder if I could ask a question on housing. And I know just enough about this topic to be dangerous. It's good to see Will White on this call. But one of the things we were doing in the Dalles before I retired, looking at development of the Tony's lot downtown, one of the concepts there involved housing, and the topic of condo development came up. Apparently, there are some long-term challenges in Oregon regarding liability over condo development. And there was a bill, HB 3746, that was going through the legislature this spring. And yeah, there are tens of thousands of bills out there. But in general, you any updates on that one? This would basically provide some protection for condo developers so that a tenant couldn't come back 10 years later and find some fault with the structure and then go after the developer. I think that's the general idea of this thing. And
so,
go ahead.
So I think that was is that the condo liability bill you're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay, so that was in committee. I believe that passed. They shrunk the timeframes down a little bit, but that is going, and I think it passed out of the House and the Senate. I think the governor signed it. I'll have Nick check into that. But I remember that was a discussion. There are some that wanted longer, some that wanted shorter, and there's only so much I think you can hold a build or two to a point for repairs that may be damaged. And usually when you buy a house, it's like a year, because you get a year warranty. And so I think they extended that out a little bit for because the units, the condo style unit or multifamily unit's a little bit different. So that's my recall of that, Dan.
That would be good to know. Thank you, Jeff. I'll pass that along to the city. They're probably tracking already, but I'd never heard of that barrier before. And I was talking with a developer out of Portland, and he raised the the concern, and apparently it's led to a lot of underbuilding of condos in Oregon. So cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that is, it's just another condos. Some people like them, some people don't. I mean, it's just another place that people can be housed that can get, I wouldn't say it's a starter home, but it's a starting point for people to build some equity and get that, and get those things done that way, which is, it's a good thing. We're short of housing. We got to figure out how to be better at that.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. So we have a question in the chat. What is Jeff's position on using some of the kicker to fund some wildfire cost?
So that was the governor's proposal, and that the citizens have been very loud and clear on the kicker. That has gone to the ballot a couple different times about that, and there's just no way that that would even, I don't think, be entertained to do that. I mean, some people think you could, but that's one of those things that the citizens have said no numerous times about. And so just like state income tax, or not state income, I'm sorry, just like sales tax, there has been very robust conversations about that in public and private, and ballot measures about that. And that people said, no, they don't want a sales tax. And people said, keep your hands off our kicker. But I do think you're going to see the kicker be the way the state budget's calculated now. I don't think that kicker trigger will be happen as often, because there's a different economist in. They're looking at different ways they're projecting the revenues coming in. And so I think with the new projection system that they're working on, you may not see a kicker. I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen, but what I'm saying is I think they'll be able to be more precise in, revenues out.
Thank
The
you.
modeling.
All right, Phil, it's your turn now.
Thank you. Let me start off with, since you're working in transportation, thank you. That's a tough area.
So I'm going to stop. Let me stop you there let me get through my transportation conversation, and then then we can kind of go for there. So we know sine die is imminent, and I was asked to be part of the conversation as a Republican sitting at the table. And I always view I would much rather sit at the table than be on the menu, and so I took that to heart and sat and had some difficult conversations. And there, when you're not at the table, you don't get to decide what's going on and be a part of it. And so, that being said, having that voice there and trying to be part of that, the solutions, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of tax hikes. What we're looking at in the next 4 or 5 years, if this package as it stands right now, would be $2 billion worth of tax increases. And set that in for a second, $2 billion. And so we know our economies, as people are struggling, the job market's contracting just a little bit, but there's still money coming in, but we got to be better with it. And so that 50-30-20 split I think where the counties are going to go with is that is going to be in place, but how much money is going to be there for that, I don't know. There's I think 10 amendments. I'm looking at the schedule right. We're having our meeting today about that and what's going to get adopted into that package and what's not going to be adopted into that package. And I know the cities want to need more money for their operations and maintenance. The counties need that too. But the problem is some of the cities, like, who's going to pay for it? Who's ultimately going to pay for all this? It's going to be the people that live there. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of our companies leaving. Intel is going to have constriction in their jobs. They're saying 10 to 15% reduction workforce company wide. I've heard figures, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 here in Oregon. Jen Weld's moved out of the state. Dutch Brothers has now moved their corporate headquarters out of the state. The coffee shop will still be here, but corporate headquarters has moved out. So that means that's more revenue that's been lost. The mills have been closing down. So we got to do better with what we have. And I know infrastructure, roads, culverts, all those things are important. I got a bridge I'm trying to figure out how we're going to fund too. So I get it. And I just don't know what this package is going to look like. We have all the budgets. So this year in the subcommittee of public safety, ways and means that I was on, for the first time that we actually sat down, it was from the co-chairs, they call them the big co-chairs of the ways and means, said, here's their budgets. Here's where prioritize what you think is important for you and your district. And we all got to sit there and do that. And then where would you want to see reductions at in these things? And so for the first time, we sat down and saw the budgets, worked through the process of what a haircut would look like for each of the agencies and who would get fully funding or partial funding. And and not everybody got cookies to take home. Everybody took a haircut at this, and some had more of a haircut than others. So I don't know what this transportation package is going to look like because like I said, we have these amendments going on. So that, open it up. Here we go.
There we go. First, I'm a electric car driver, and I want you to know it's okay to put a mileage tax on electric cars. Electric cars, if drivers, if we were just interested in being cheap, we would have bought a less expensive vehicle. So we want to do our fair share. And
well, let me ask you this: since
yeah.
I drive one, you drive one, how do you track the mileage?
That's going to be an issue. Yeah, like with the GPS or self-report. It starts simple and you know what would be the less burdensome. Yeah, GPS is going to get people getting government in my driver passenger seat. So I'd try and do a annual report.
So not only that, so people just throw the GPS thing out there. Well, just do our GPS. I'm fine with it. I'm not worried about where I'm going. Okay, trip across into Washington back and forth, and it's
yeah.
And it's the same thing. The argument is as well, when you fill up for gas in Oregon and you cross the bridge and you drive in Washington, you're using their roads and you haven't filled up their gas tax. It's just kind of this chicken and the egg kind of thing. But what people don't realize is the back end of that GPS or the back end of things. So when we start doing that, that creates another administrative burden somewhere. And so there's a company that can do those things, and then they take a percentage. When they collect those revenues, they get a percentage of those revenues that get taken. And so everybody's getting a cut of money. And that's where I look at this and I just like, and I get people need to make a living. I understand that, but there is, in what I've seen so far in the GPS tracking of system, and I think if you went to just a strictly you pay by mile, and if you don't drive very often, you don't pay very much, which is fine. If you drive a lot, then does that hurt our partners in Eastern Oregon that are farmers and ranchers, or even in Wasco County, where they have to drive a long way, but just because they got to get to the next field? And so there's some different things to think about when you look at the weight or the mileage thing. So what people don't, what really didn't get me was, what really stood out to me was the back end when it comes to the administrative, what these companies take for a cut of those dollars coming in that actually don't go to roads.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about Eastern Oregon, because if it's high mileage, we're not going to be on electric cars. We're going to go back to hybrids. And
no, but they talk about for the whole state. Everybody do that. Anyway, I'm sorry. The two different subjects merged into one, but yes.
What does also comes into this at a fairness level is when in highway taxes in general, the highway fund is different. It's paid for by gas taxes, as opposed to being paid for by property taxes and income tax. And in that sense, the highway fund is a fee for service kind of thing, as opposed to something that's paid for out of the general revenue. And when we do that, which is right, we get into, okay, we're just going to tax the people who are using the service. That narrows the tax base. So we just got to accept that, okay, if we're narrowing the tax base to those who are using the service, the tax is going to be higher. We can't do it both ways, saying, okay, I'm going to just tax the people who are using this, but it's also going to be less because I'm not taxing other folks. We got to accept some economic realities there.
Well, the reality though is remember, with the Clean Energy Act, with the clean trucks, and those type of things, and then pushing to get higher mileage cars because you're using less gas, less carbon footprint, all those things like that. So then we want higher mileage cars. We get that. Then they're not using as much gas, but they're using the same amount of the road.
Yeah.
Not saying that we got to go back to vehicles that are 10 miles, get 10 miles in a gallon of gas, but I don't think when they started doing that, that downstream effect, somebody probably thought of it, but they'll say, well, we'll figure it out then. And we're trying to figure it out now. So
I wanted to go in a different direction. I work, and this might be not in your wheelhouse, but I'm working more with Health and Human Services, and we're continuing to be having trouble with that just bottleneck at the state hospital. It's coming to the counties in terms of the Oregon Health Authority wants the Community Mental Health Association to sign a contract, and the contract is more less flexible than the counties want to sign on to. And also, there's a one subject to availability of funds that makes the counties fear that we're going to end up paying out of our general fund to pay for mental health services. So that is connected to the state hospital because of the aid and assist problem where we're stuck. So appreciate, I know it's an intractable situation, but we need to fix this one too.
So you mentioned aid and assist. We talked about that yesterday in one of our meetings. And that's a bill coming up. We're under federal, the state is under federal, the state hospitals under federal control with this one particular doctor that says this is the way it shall be done. And it's kind of interesting being just listening to that conversation, but that bill will be coming up. And I think, unfortunately, the county is going to lose a lot of control, a lot of local control with this, with the aid and assist type things. And one of the things to know that there is going to be there's some really people that are unable to defend them or have a self-defense. And this is going to be interesting. They have committed really serious crimes, very person crimes that are just horrendous. And they're going to, if there's not a bed space for them at the state hospital or somewhere, then they'll be put into the community restoration program, which is these facilities like you have in the Dalles, but more so in some other places where they're actually just these either secure facility or non-secure facility, these homes that they're going to be in, and your staffing is going to try to keep these people rounded up. And you're going to have people that are sex offenders living in neighborhoods next to schools, and because they're unable to defend themselves because of their mental incapacitation to be able to just know what they actually did. And so that's one of the things that I found in this aid and assist package that was very concerning to me. And they went ahead and superseded all these things when I had plenty of ideas before and they didn't like them. So that's just something coming out. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out here in the next week or so.
Okay.
Phil, did
Any
you
other
have
questions? I'm sorry.
Because I have a question online. If
Okay,
Phil doesn't.
I got to jump here real quick, but go ahead.
Okay, so real quick, is there a tax on road tires sold in Oregon that goes towards the roads? They haven't seen anything itemized, but curious if it's behind the scene.
So there was a road tax or tire tax, and I would say if the tire tax went to go help pay for roads, great. But the tire tax didn't pay for roads. The tire tax was going to pay for wildlife crossings. It was going to pay for a study to see the effects of tire wear, dust, and how that goes into the Columbia River and helps or hurts salmon restoration. And the other part of it was going to fund railroads, the transit type stuff. Literally, it was going to fund trains. And I'm like, that was a non-starter all the way around. So I don't know what the next amendments look like for that, but I know wildlife crossings are important. I took them to task because we can drive up and down I-84 along Rowena right there. We know where that's always at. We always see deer that are hitting on the side of the road and other wildlife. And they wanted to create these wildlife crossings, but it was more some specific areas in Eastern Oregon where they actually build the fences and then put the underpasses so the animals can go through, which I support, but that's not really what a tire tax I think people would be willing to pay for.
Thank you. Phil, you got 30 seconds. He's got to run.
Can do that real quick. What was the bill number on the one you were talking about, community restoration and sex offenders moving into communities?
That's on the whole package. This is a big. There's just a subtitle in there. I found out about it, and so I have some more information coming from the district attorneys on that. So I'll have staff shoot you an email.
If you want to end on a positive note, you can talk about the success of having some wolf depredation laws come into effect for the first time in like 15 years.
Almost over.
Though that's good. But we got to figure out how we're going to refund or fund back the loss of the animals, and so that's another question how we're going to talk about. Good that we got that across the finish line, but where's the funding to repay the people that have experienced the loss because of the wolves?
All right. Jeff, I know
I got to jump. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.
See you guys.
Bill, I got some fun news if you want to stay online for a second after, or not Bill, Dan Spatz. I got some fun news if you want to stay online afterwards.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to let you guys all go and have a few extra minutes in your day. We'll let Phil and Dan entertain on the Zoom afterwards. But I want to thank you so much for everybody. Next week is round robin. So please bring all your updates from your organizations that you represent. That way we can update everybody in the room and online. So I look forward to that with you guys next week, and take care and have an amazing weekend. And be sure to check everything out. Farmers Market is just humming and buzzing. So that's 9 to 1 on Saturday. But this Saturday, I'm going to give you a little caution. Please put on some extra smiles. We will have the Ted Walker Memorial Swim Meet. We have 45 teams. No, wait, we have 11 teams of 30 children each. We are also doing the Little League tournament that has 45 teams of 11 people each, 11 students. So we will have well over just almost 1,000 kids running around, while they all come with two parents or one parent or grandparent or aunts and uncles. So our town will be very busy, and most of these people are from out of town. So if you guys can put on a little extra smile and help them get to where they need to go, that would be great. They're all getting welcome bags from the chamber with specials from our businesses, so they can get a few discounts while they're here, and information. So that is happening in our community. Plus, there's several other activities. Brian, you have something?
Business after hours is still on tonight?
Yes, it is. It'll be down at the Hoffman Hills Lavender Farm on Mill Creek, and it's being hosted by Mick Laughlin Lavender, who are managing that and have some value added lavender products. And so we'll be doing that from 5 to 7 out on Mill Creek. Should be fun.
I will not be on the call next week, but I'll ask Jake or Josh to see if, or Matthew, see if they can join in and give
Okay,
an update
perfect.
on the city.
Appreciate
Gloria,
that. Thank you.
It's Happy Juneteenth Day.
yes.
Oh, yes,
Banks
it
are
is. Thank you.
closed. Banks are
The
closed.
the Gloria Center is reopening as a shelter, partly
Yes.
because of all the visitors coming to town have taken up all the hotels, which is good. But because we had this unplanned fire, we
Yes.
have people who also need hotel rooms.
Yes, I got that information, so we'll be adding that to our website also, just so there's another spot for people to find that information. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to let you guys all go, and you guys take care, and I'll see you next week, if not before.